If you look at the sailboat market today, it appears strong. Marinas are full. Asking prices remain elevated. Inventory exists. But the surface can be misleading. The market isn't collapsing. It's quietly tightening. Behind the rows of glossy listings and packed marina slips, a different story unfolds in the numbers. For most of the past year, the average sailboat sale in the United States closed at roughly 7% below its asking price. This discount is not a sign of sudden distress, but of a market where sellers are slow to adjust expectations set during the pandemic's peak. Boats that would have moved quickly in 2021 now linger. Median days on market have climbed to 172, up 15% year over year. Liquidity, in this context, refers to how easily a boat can be sold at or near its asking price within a reasonable time frame. That ease is fading. Sellers often anchor to last year's numbers, convinced their 1998 sloop should fetch what a neighbor's boat brought in 2022. But buyers, facing higher financing costs and more choices, are negotiating harder. The result is a widening gap between headline prices and actual deals, with each stale listing quietly eroding the illusion of a brisk market. This friction is most visible in the growing spread between list and sale prices, and in the lengthening wait for a serious offer. Brokers report more price cuts and longer negotiation cycles as inventory builds and buyers become choosier. The surface optimism, full docks, and steady listings masks a slow tightening beneath. The numbers reveal a market adjusting, not through sudden drops, but through persistent, quiet compression. Most sailboat owners in the United States today are well past midlife. According to the National Marine Manufacturers Association, the median age of ownership has reached 60, a notable climb from just a few years ago. This aging profile is not a quirk of the data, but a structural feature shaping the market's direction. Over 30% of all current listings are attributed to owners between 55 and 70, many of whom are preparing for retirement, downsizing, or simply moving on from the demands of boat upkeep. The result is a steady stream of listings driven not by speculation, but by life cycle and necessity. At the same time, the pipeline of new buyers is thinning. Brand studies of boater retention show that first-time registrations, which hovered above 50% during the pandemic surge, have now slipped to just 45%. While the average age of a first-time buyer has dipped slightly, the total number of new entrants is moving in the opposite direction. Younger generations, often attracted by the idea of sailing, face a different set of realities: higher barriers to entry, less family exposure to boating, and more competing lifestyle choices. The story of a young couple who spent months searching for their first cruiser, only to be derailed by financing setbacks, is no longer unusual. Tighter credit standards and larger down payments have become routine hurdles, especially for buyers under 40. This demographic transition exerts pressure on both sides of the market. Sellers outnumber committed buyers, but are slow to adjust their expectations. The inertia in pricing is as much about psychology as economics. Owners who have sailed for decades are reluctant to accept that the next generation may not be waiting in line. The market's surface stability is thus underpinned by a gradual, quiet shift in who owns, who sells, and who can afford to enter at all. Across the U.S., the cost of ownership of a sailboat has climbed in ways that reshape both who can buy and who can hold on to a vessel. The most immediate pressure comes from financing. After a decade of low rates, marine loans now routinely exceed 7%, a direct consequence of the Federal Reserve's rate hikes since 2022. On a $300,000 loan, monthly payments have jumped by more than 40% compared to 3 years ago. Lenders have also tightened their standards, requiring down payments of 18 to 20% and approving fewer applicants, especially among buyers with less equity or shorter credit histories. Carrying costs do not stop with financing. Marina slip fees have risen 12 to 18% since 2019, with premium slips in Florida and the Pacific Northwest now commanding as much as $13,200 per year for a 40-foot boat. Insurance premiums have surged even faster, up 22 to 30% nationally, driven by hurricane losses and rising replacement costs. For many owners in Gulf Coast states, insuring a 35 to 50-foot sailboat now costs between $2,500 and $5,000 annually, with higher deductibles and stricter survey requirements. Refit and maintenance costs, too, have outpaced inflation. Annual yard bills and upgrades are up 9 to 12%, reflecting labor shortages and supply chain disruptions. A typical 35-foot cruiser can easily require $8,000 to $12,000 per year just to stay seaworthy. These increases layer atop each other, pushing the monthly cost of ownership beyond what many younger or first-time buyers can justify. For those already in the market, the decision to hold or sell is no longer just about passion. It is about whether the numbers still add up. Liquidity in the sailboat market does not move in lockstep across all vessel sizes. Instead, the numbers reveal a fragmented landscape, with each length segment facing its own set of pressures and opportunities. Coastal cruisers in the 30 to 38-foot range continue to turn over at a healthy clip, with annual turnover rates around 22% and a median days on market of just 130. These boats benefit from broader affordability and a deeper pool of buyers, making them the closest thing to a liquid asset in this market. Price retention is also strongest here. After 5 years, a typical 30-foot cruiser still holds about 85% of its original value, buoyed by steady demand and lower carrying costs. The story changes dramatically as length increases. Blue water cruisers between 40 and 50 feet now see turnover rates fall to roughly 13%, and median days on market stretch to 210. Sellers in this segment face a thinner buyer pool, as higher ownership costs and insurance hurdles deter many would-be upgraders. Price retention slips as well, with these boats retaining closer to 75% of their original value after 5 years. For owners, each month on the market adds to the expense, compounding the financial drag of slow movement. At the top end, luxury yachts over 50 feet represent the slowest moving segment. Annual turnover drops to just 5%, and the median days on market climbs to 340. These vessels often require all-cash buyers and face the sharpest depreciation, with only about 70% of value retained after 5 years. Brokers describe this segment as capital-intensive and highly illiquid, where even a well-presented listing can linger for months or years. The illusion of a unified market dissolves under these numbers. Liquidity is not a given, but a function of size, cost, and buyer depth. Inside brokerages, the mechanics of a sailboat sale have grown more complicated than most listings suggest. Conditional offers now account for nearly a third of deals, rising from 22% to 31% in the last 5 years. These offers hinge on financing or survey outcomes, and more often than before, they fall apart. Survey failures, where a marine inspection reveals issues that derail the sale, have climbed from 9% to 14%. Each failed deal returns a boat to the market, swelling inventory figures without reflecting true buyer demand. Not every listing is what it appears. Broker audits estimate that about 12% of online listings are ghost listings, boats that are either no longer available or were never truly for sale, but remain posted to maintain the illusion of abundant choice. Negotiation timelines have also stretched, with the average deal now taking 12 days to close, up from 5 days a few years ago. A senior broker calls the process a game of patience, where every extra day on the market adds cost and risk, yet keeps inventory numbers artificially high. These layers of deal friction inflate the visible supply, masking the slow grind beneath what looks like a thriving marketplace. Marina slips across the United States are booked years in advance, with waiting lists stretching from Florida to the Pacific Northwest. Yet, beneath the rows of docked hulls, the reality is less about vibrant exchange and more about long-term holding. Most marina contracts now span 1 to 5 years, locking in space for owners who have little intention of moving on quickly. Operators report that over 70% of their docks are filled by returning clients, many of whom renew automatically, treating their slip more like a second home than a launch pad for frequent sailing or sale. This behavior isn't limited to a handful of regions. In high-demand areas such as Miami or Seattle, multi-year agreements are the norm, not the exception. Owners, facing rising slip fees and insurance costs, often choose to hold their spot, sometimes even after their sailing days have slowed, rather than face the uncertainty of re-entering a competitive slip market. For many, the dock becomes a form of storage, not a staging ground for active turnover. From the marina operator's perspective, this stability ensures steady revenue but does little to signal a healthy, liquid market. Full docks do not mean boats are changing hands. Instead, they reflect a system where ownership cycles stretch out and vessels remain in place, sometimes for years, regardless of market conditions. The visual abundance of boats in the harbor can easily be mistaken for market strength. But in practice, it often signals a quiet, structural tightening where liquidity is thin and the true activity is far less than it appears. Today, visible strength masks a market in gradual transition. Liquidity continues to narrow, ownership ages, and carrying costs rise, and these are structural, not cyclical changes. Adjustment happens quietly, not catastrophically. For those navigating these waters, recognizing compression is essential. Markets do not fail with noise. They reshape in silence. Share your perspective below.